Dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. A new group backing the military authority in Niger emerges as tensions between Niamey and Cotonou escalate.
We remind you that our torch-bearer today is the CNSP. We recognize no other but the CNSP, which is under the control of Brigadier General Ibrahim Chiani.
Malians lament challenges posed by the continuous industrial action by the financial and oil sector workers in the country. CSOs and political parties in Côte d'Ivoire call for urgent reforms before the presidential election in October 2025. And in Liberia, aggrieved members of the United Methodist Church protest the endorsement of same-sex marriage by the church's mother body.
The idea is that it should happen in America and Europe, but once it comes to Liberia or Africa, it shouldn't happen. And we say no.
They saw the Methodist Church already in the US. Now they want to impose that on Africa, especially Liberia. We say no.
The next thing, they will start pushing it to the host level. They will spray the entire nation.
Stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia and Sierra Leone. We begin this edition of Newslink in Niger as several civil society organizations and union structures are joining forces to establish a platform called Niger First, which aims to strengthen unity and synergy of action within these different structures. This coalition emerges at a time that tensions are rising between Niamey and Cotonou, with the recent arrest of 5 Nigerians by the Beninese police while they attended the loading of Nigerian crude oil at the port of Senegal. Augustine Kwole reports.
Niger First is the name of a new platform that unites civil society organizations and union structures. The objective is clear: to come together to better defend the interest of Niger, which is currently led by the military. Musa is a member of this platform.
We've set for ourselves a number of objectives, including safeguarding our sovereignty. It's very important that Nigerians can really get to the grips with it and, above all, work on it, because we can't just say, yes, we are sovereign. So in this campaign, we are going to try to raise awareness among Nigerians.
To set the tone for its efforts, the new coalition of civil society and union organizations has spoken out about the diplomatic crisis between Niger and Benin. It has condemned the recent arrest of 5 Nigerian nationals in Benin and stated that the export of Nigerian oil to China via Benin must involve the Nigerian side. Falmata Teya, a member of the platform.
We remind you that our torch-bearer today is the CNSP. We recognize no other but the CNSP, which is under the control of Brigadier General Ibrahim Chiani. We can't charge our boats without our presence. It is just not possible.
Why Niger refuses to reopen its land borders with Benin? Cotonou has indicated that, in the context of the joint oil project with China, cooperation with Niamey must be conducted within a legal framework, reiterating the demand to reopen the border. Meanwhile, the new platform, Niger First, plans to organize demonstrations in support of the military in power on June 21 in Niamey and throughout the country.
Augustine Kwole with that report. Still in the Sahel, consumers in Mali are bearing the brunt of a National Union of Banks, Insurance and Financial Institutions strike. The union says it is taking a tougher stance as industrial action continues unabated. Sinabev is demanding the immediate release of its Secretary General, Hamadou Ba, who was jailed last week for forgery and the use of forged documents. In a statement, the Consumer Association of Mali denounced what it calls a violation of consumers' basic rights. It plans to file a complaint against this union. Echatusu has more.
Today, banks, insurance and financial institutions in Mali will remain closed. Their union, Sinambef, is calling for the continuation of the strike that began in the middle of last week until their Secretary General, Amadou Ba, is released. He is detained at Bamako Central Prison for forgery and the use of forged documents following a complaint from another union. To recall, the extension of this strike paralyzes the banks just as the Tabaski holiday, celebrated by the Muslim community, approaches. The Consumer Association of Mali condemns the strike, which it deems illegal and a violation of consumers' rights. It announces a complaint against Senabef. In its renewed strike, Senabef has received support from several other central unions, including the Malian Lawyers Union, SAM, and Sailima.
Eche Atisu filed that report. In Côte d'Ivoire, several civil society organizations and political parties are calling for urgent reforms before the presidential election in October 2025. The statement highlights concerns about the electoral process, particularly the composition of the Independent Electoral Commission (CEI) and the control of electoral acts and documents. The organizations, representing 14 entities, met on May 7, 2024 to discuss the situation and adopt a common position. They emphasized the need for an open and inclusive dialogue to ensure transparent and peaceful elections. Key issues include the Electoral Commission's independence, the electoral division, and the re-examination of certain provisions in the Constitution and Electoral Code. The organizations express solidarity with the suffering populations and call for unity and cooperation to avoid electoral clashes. Let's take you to Ghana, where the International Monetary Fund (IMF) has announced that the country is likely to receive the third tranche of $360 million by the end of this month. This financial support comes at a crucial time as the country strives to stabilize its economy and manage its weakening cedi, which has struggled against the strengthening of US dollar. From Accra, Narede Tete completes the story.
At a press briefing on June 6, the IMF highlighted its commitment to assisting Ghana in obtaining board approval for the release of these funds. Julie Kozak, the fund's Director of Communications, detailed the upcoming financial assistance and its significance.
Our aim is to bring the review to the IMF's Executive Board for approval before the end of June. This would give Ghana access to $360 million in financing, bringing the total to about $1.6 billion in disbursements since May of 2023.
The IMF underlined that Ghana's strong policy and reform efforts under the 3-year program are beginning to show positive results, with signs of economic stabilization and growth exceeding initial expectations. In its forward-looking statement, the IMF expressed its conviction that unwavering policy implementation and reform will play a pivotal role in completely and sustainably reinstating macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability in Ghana.
Looking ahead, the government has committed to continue implementing the program as envisaged to ensure sustainable growth and support poverty reduction.
Meanwhile, fresh data from the Bank of Ghana shows that the country's total public debt has reached 658.6 billion Ghana cedis, nearly double the level it was in December 2022 before the Domestic Debt Exchange Program, DDEP, was implemented. For WDR, Nadiri Tete, Accra.
Still in Ghana, hundreds of protesters took to the streets of the capital Accra over the weekend to demand an end to chronic power outages across the country. Rallied by local celebrities, the protesters demanded that the government address the matter urgently to cushion Ghanaians and businesses from incurring power-attributed losses. The demonstrators carried placards with various messages such as "Stop Dumsor," and others marched with kerosene lanterns to symbolize their daily struggles. In Ghana, Dumsor is referred to as a persistent, irregular, and unpredictable electric power outage. According to the Power Regulatory Commission, the outages are due to overloaded transformers, but experts partly blame it on the country's inability to pay private power suppliers. It should be recalled that in February this year, the state power utility briefly called off power supplies to the parliamentary building to push the legislature to pay its $1.8 million debt. To address this issue, the Ghanaian government has been seeking to restructure the power sector and seal a deal with Independent Power Producers (IPP).
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
This is Newslink, and we're live on WADR.org and on Facebook at WADR English Service. In Liberia, a group of aggrieved members of the United Methodist Church have staged a protest against the church's decision to endorse same-sex marriage. Recently, the United Methodist General Conference, the church's global legislative body held in the United States, voted to overturn an earlier ban on LGBTQ people. The historic change included a new definition of marriage as a lifelong covenant between two people of faith, something that the Liberian membership are kicking against. WADR's Darlington Popper has the rest of the details.
The United Methodist Church Conference in the United States recently embraced the activities of the LGBTQ community. The church voted to allow LGBTQ clergy to serve in a church, reversing a 40-year ban. The church also changed its stance on marriage, arguing that it was a lifelong agreement between two people of faith rather than solely between a man and a woman. Speaking during a protest over the weekend, some members of the United Methodist Church in Liberia criticized the move, saying it was against biblical principles.
The idea is that it should happen in America and Europe, but once it comes to Liberia or Africa, it shouldn't happen. And we said no. Once against the teaching of the church, it should be against it. We should be out for or against.
They saw the Methodist Church already in the U.S. Now they want to impose that on Africa, especially Liberia. We say no.
To provide some explanation to displease the members following the protests, Bishop Samuel Coe, who heads the United Methodist Church in Liberia, clarified that delegates from Liberia rejected the amendments to allow same-sex marriage in the church.
To all United Methodists in Liberia and our Liberian public, the United Methodist Church is not a gay church. It is a strong church of God, administering to sinners who are in need of the saving knowledge and grace of God. It is a worldwide denomination that is making a significant impact on our world. Yes, there are differences of opinion and conviction across our denomination, but the mission remains the same.
Bishop Samuel Coe is, however, warning members of the church to desist from staging protests that will bring the church to public disrepute. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
To issues related to security, the Nigerian troops from Operation Udoka conducted a raid on the camp of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, otherwise known as IPOB, and its armed wing, the Eastern Security Network, ESN, in Igboro Forest, Arochukwu local government area of Abia State over the weekend. The operation resulted in the neutralization of 6 terrorists and was carried out in response to the attack on troops in Aba last week, which claimed the lives of 6 soldiers. WADR's Abuja correspondent Usman Omar has more.
According to the Nigerian Army's statement on Sunday, the intelligence-led operation aimed to apprehend those responsible for the attack. During the operation, troops encountered improvised explosive devices and 1 soldier sustained a minor injury from a fragment. The Joint Task Force, Operation Udoka, urged the people of Abia to continue providing credible and timely information to security agencies to help eradicate criminal elements in the state and the entire southeast. Last week's attack by IPOB occurred at Obikapia Junction checkpoint in Obingwa local government area adjacent to Aba metropolis, where troops were deployed to maintain peace and protect citizens. Unfortunately, 6 civilians were killed in the crossfire between the terrorists and the troops. In response to the attack, military vowed to retaliate brutally, stating that the IPOB ESN terrorists launched the attack while enforcing a sit-at-home order across the southeast to mark the Biafra Day. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Omar reporting from Abuja.
You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM Dakar and across the world at WADR.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. A new group backing the military authority in Niger emerges as tensions between Niamey and Cotonou escalate. Malians lament challenges posed by the continuous industrial action by the financial and oil sector workers in the country. CSOs and political parties in Côte d'Ivoire call for urgent reforms before the presidential election in October 2025. We also told you that in Liberia, aggrieved members of the United Methodist Church protest the endorsement of same-sex marriage by the church's mother body. Still ahead in the news, youth, women and experts in Dakar continue engagement to combat climate change. We also have the press review, guest interview, and in the sporting world, the Teranga Lions of Senegal secure a win in the group stage of the FIFA 2026 Cup qualifiers. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for staying with us. Let's now focus our attention on the environment, because even after the June 5 World Environment Day, climate discussions continued in Dakar, the Senegalese capital, where the Sheikh Anta Diop University hosted hundreds of people. Organized over the weekend, the awareness campaign brought together youth and women's associations, farmers groups, innovators, climate experts, and academics to strategize new measures in combating climate change. The campaign centered on this year's theme of World Environment Day, land degradation, desertification, and drought resilience. Ogebirika reports.
The event provided an opportunity for critical engagement between participants on mitigation and adaptation measures in West African countries to address threats to food security. Paying particular attention to land degradation and desertification, scientists at their respective pavilions presented different cutting-edge innovations for local food processing and storage, climate-resilient seeds, and conversion of animal and general agricultural waste into fertilizers. According to Amuzo Caleb, Secretary General of Tuba Universal Compost, embracing such products would reduce dependency on fertilizers, pesticides, and other farm chemical products negatively impacting the soil.
Our vision is how to produce more compost coming from agriculture, coming from breeding, like house breeding. Those products from us, the object is to make a regeneration of soils, natural products. Because now we know that people are using pesticides, fertilizers, yes. And our fertilizer here is compost, and this compost is natural.
Oxfam, one of the main organizers of the event, says it is leading a wider environmental campaign in 8 African countries to synergize actions and push for legislation around climate issues. Ka Njaye is Oxfam's country director for Senegal.
We realize that this is the best way to sustain our intervention in countries. It's not only about communities' ownership. We need to have this translated into public policies. And we're not doing it only at the national level. So at regional also, we're trying to put into synergy different countries' actions to make sure that this will affect region and the continent overall.
Natural Justice, AYC Senegal, and RECODEF have pledged to oversee discussions among stakeholders to change the current climate narrative from impact to gains on the African continent.
Ogebirika with that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's join Usman Omar in Abuja for a summary of major and banner headlines from the Nigerian national dailies.
Hello and welcome to the press review segment today. We begin with the New Telegraph newspaper. The New Telegraph is leading with this story: infrastructure neglect, poor investment, others liable for power crisis. This is according to experts. Governors mull interstate power collaboration. Electricity has been a serious challenge for most communities in Nigeria, and experts have been wading in, especially in the wake of government announcement of a tariff hike for electricity. Of course, there is no enough infrastructure, and the ones that are available are being neglected. There is also the issue of very poor investment because of the instability in the power sector in Nigeria. A lot of investors have chosen to rather go elsewhere with their funds. Of course, before we take leave of the New Telegraph, let's also take a look at this story. Governors, senators, reps should also earn 62,000 naira. This is coming from Mbaka. He is a religious leader, and Ajati is an economic expert. Of course, the conversation around a new national minimum wage for Nigerian workers rages on, with some experts predicting another round of strike, especially within this week. But also, there is also, ILO, that is International Labour Organization Conference, coming up in Geneva, and most of the labor leaders will be jetting out of the country for that conference, and this will also stall the ongoing, deliberations over new national minimum wage. The update is that the government is offering to pay 62,000 naira as new national minimum wage. Labour is insisting now on 250,000 naira. Governors of the states are now also insisting that they can't be able to pay 62,000 naira. So it's a whole lot of conversation still ongoing as far as a new national minimum wage for Nigerian workers is concerned. Let's take a look at quickly Leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper is also leading with this story on electricity. Life-saving services threatened in teaching hospitals. We pay between 2.5 and 4 million naira daily to distribution companies. This is coming from chief medical directors of hospitals. The issue of electricity, again, is being highlighted here as a challenge to provision of life-saving services at teaching hospitals. This is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of Press Review with me, Usman Umar, from Nigeria's capital, Abuja, and it's back to you in the studios.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this afternoon is Har Njai, country director of Oxfam Senegal, who describes the importance of an ongoing climate debate in 8 African countries to restore agricultural lands, improve food security, and protect biodiversity.
This is really a massive mobilization to raise awareness among the different sectors and also the different social categories, not only women and youth, but also everyone in our society.
Is this just about Senegal, or you looking?
It's about the world. Mm-hmm. It's about the African continent, mm-hmm. and it's about Senegal. This debate around the climate is very actual. And it's also very passionate here and in the African continent in general. The project that we're implementing and that has this goal of democratizing the debate around climate is a project that we're implementing in 8 countries. It's West and East Africa, and we had make sure that we put together efforts from different types of organizations that are complementary to address the different aspects of this critical question of climate. So you have youth organization, women organization, but you also have the private sector. Mm-hmm. You have research institutions that also join their effort to us to be able to identify adequate solutions to issues that now we observe are happening in our undeveloped countries that are suffering more from climate change than the countries that pollute actually the world.
So, for instance, the carbon emissions?
Yeah, of course, carbon emissions. But in another side also, you have deforestation, mm-hmm. you have this degradation of lands, and which affected our agricultural production. And meanwhile also impacts food and nutrition security. This is really something that escalates and that we have to stop very urgently. Mm.
This world theme of the World Environment Day is land degradation, desertification, and drought resilience. How imperative is that in Senegal's context, and why this is important that you shift the narrative or change the narrative?
The fact is that I have the feeling that countries like Senegal do not have enough knowledge and evidence to tackle and address these issues. So in Senegal, Oxfam decided that we will collect data and evidence that we can use to build our advocacy approach. But most importantly, what we're trying to do is to shift the narrative that you just mentioned and have our local communities create their own understanding of the phenomena, and then also have their own narrative, meaning that how people perceive or feel or live climate change at the local or the communitarian level is different of how people at global level understand it and also integrate it in their daily lives.
That was Kara Njai, Country Director of Oxfam, Senegal, speaking at the climate event held at the Sheikh Anta Diop University in Dakar. Up next is a sports update with Sankule Janko.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The 2021 AFCON champions Senegal secured a narrow 1-0 win over neighbors Mauritania on Sunday to go top of Group B in the FIFA 2026 World Cup qualifiers. The Teranga Lions collected the maximum 3 points courtesy of Habibou Diallo's 27th minute goal in a tightly contested match. The victory earned Senegal top spot in Group B with 8 points ahead of Sudan in second, who played a game less. Elsewhere, the Gambia secured their first win of the 2026 World Cup qualifiers after thrashing Seychelles 5-1 on Saturday. A brace from forward Mohamed Badamosi alongside goals scored by Yankuba Minte, Musa Barrow and Adama Sidibe led the Scorpions to a resounding victory in coach Jonathan McKinstry's first match in charge. Meanwhile, Liberia secured a crucial 1-0 victory over Sao Tome and Principe on Sunday in Group H of their 2026 World Cup qualifier, courtesy of a late goal by Cheikh Cissé. The win moves the Lone Stars to third in their group with 7 points. The results for the 2026 World Cup qualifiers in Africa over the weekend are as follows: Sao Tome and Principe 0, Liberia 1, Djibouti 1, Ethiopia 1, DR Congo 1, Togo 0, Mauritania 0, Senegal 1, Namibia 0, Tunisia 0, Cameroon 4, Cape Verde 1, and the Gambia 5, Seychelles 1. That's it for sports. It's back to you.
Sports is brought to you by Sankule Janko. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, a broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and David Vincent for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is WADR's health flagship program, Well Body, which focuses on albinism, to be followed at the top of the hour of 1 p.m. by the second edition of Info Chez Vous, a major comprehensive news package in French. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7.